Are you guys excited to own the sacrifice? Come on, somebody help me say, own the sacrifice. Come on, say it from the bottom of your heart, say, own the sacrifice. So I want to take you on a journey real quick, man. It's last year, November, about 8 months, 9 months ago. And so I wake up in the morning and my wife comes to me and says, listen, man, I think today is the day. So if you guys follow our daily vlogs, just a quick plug there, you'd know, you probably see this on our channel. And so she wakes up and tells me today is the day. And so around 6:30 in the afternoon, she says, baby, I think it's time. Let's go. And so we get the car ready, we get the bags ready, we get everything ready, and she can barely walk. And I say, okay, baby, let's go. And we get to the hospital. The security guard brings a wheelchair, and he sets it up, right? And so, check, that's about 7:10, right? And so they set her up on the wheelchair. So they take her into the hospital, and they go, and they obviously have to do the wait first for medical reasons. And so they do the wait. Do they do the whole thing over there? So as soon as they have achieved like all the things that they needed to achieve, to do all the tests they had to do and do whatever it is that was necessary to do, they go into labor, right? And so I'm standing there, a worried father, about to be a father of a second child. And I'm standing there, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, so this is it, round 2. I'm about to have another kid. We've come up with the name, we've prepared the room, we got all the clothes, we got all the bags, we got all the bottles, we got all the dummies, we got everything that's necessary to have. And for the second time, you can stop the video, bro, thanks. For the second time, I'm in the very same position, in the very same hospital, and I'm standing there a couple of hours later, holding my second daughter in my arms. And as I'm holding her in my arms, her name is Taya, and as I'm holding her in my arms, I'm conflicted with 2 feelings, right? The one feeling is an overwhelming feeling of joy, an overwhelming feeling of excitement, an overwhelming feeling that, yo, this is my second child, you know, and I got all these amazing thoughts for this child. I got all these amazing dreams for this child, and I'm thinking, yo, she's gonna own the world, and she's gonna travel the world, and she's gonna have fun, and she's gonna discover her purpose, and she's gonna meet people and go to places and influence and impact lives. And as I'm holding her in my arms on that night of November 24th, I'm standing there and I'm imagining all that she can become. But at the same time, I'm conflicted with another thought. I'm conflicted with the thought of real life. I'm conflicted with the thought of what's happening in our society on a daily basis. I'm conflicted with the thought that I have 2 daughters and this human trafficking thing is becoming a real problem in our society. I'm conflicted with the thought that, okay, in order for her to achieve all these things she wants to achieve, it's going to cost me something, right? Tell your neighbor it costs you something. Come on, say from the bottom, say it costs something. So I'm standing there holding her in my arms and I'm thinking, this is going to cost me to see my daughter achieve her full potential, her full purpose, her full whatever it is that God has planned for her life. And while I'm standing there holding her in my arms, I'm thinking, yo, I'm gonna have to put her through school, and that's gonna cost something. Somebody help me say it costs something. I'm gonna have to put her through primary school, it's gonna cost something. I'm gonna have to put her through high school, it's gonna cost something. I'm gonna have to put her through university or whatever it is that she decides to study, it's gonna cost something. I'm gonna have to pay. She says, Daddy, listen, there's this thing going on and we want to travel or whatever. I'm her father, I'm a provider, I'm a protector. I need to do something to make sure that her dreams are met somehow. It's gonna cost something. Somebody say it costs something. And so we're speaking this morning about owning the sacrifice. And so about 2 years ago, my wife and I decided to go into this world of YouTube, right? I don't know how many of you follow the vlogs. Anybody? Quick plug. And so we decided to go into this world of YouTube, and obviously I'm doing a bunch of research, checking out a bunch of other YouTubers, checking out what they're doing, how they kind of get their whole thing put together. And as I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing people with 1 million subscribers. I'm seeing people with 2 million subscribers. You guys are into the internet world, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm seeing people with 2 million. I'm seeing people with 10 million subscribers. I'm seeing vloggers starting their vlogging careers, and they're blowing up to 100,000 subscribers. subscribers, 200,000 subscribers. So I tell Uncle, okay, I got an idea. We're going to do a video like this. People are going to watch it, and then we're going to grow this big fan base. And, in a year, it's probably going to be on 100,000 fans, and we could do all these cool things. And I'm watching all these other YouTubers, how they're buying Ferraris and Lambos, and how they're living in this fancy life. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. And so we start doing it, right? And by the third month, I start realizing, every night, man, I'm sitting up to 11 o'clock editing vlogs. Every day, man, I got to come up with a new concept and a new idea how I'm gonna put this whole thing together. Every time I'm sitting, I'm thinking, baby, what do you think we can speak about today? And soon, in less than 3 months, I begin to realize, how did they get to 1 million subscribers? Then all of a sudden, it dawns on me. This is a lot harder than it looks. How many of you have ever looked at people and seen what they've achieved in life? How many of you ever looked at somebody else and saw how they've accomplished certain things and achieved certain things? I like saying this thing always when I speak to my wife. I say, baby, you know what we got to do? We got to stay in our lane. You know why? Because you don't know what journey that person was on. You don't know what they had to do to get to where they are. You don't know the stops they had to pull out to achieve what they want to achieve. And so when I begin to then look at this journey, I then realize that, oh, snap, this is a lot harder than it looks. And in the first year, we managed to get to 500 subs. I'm like, when do you get to that level where people are hitting 1 million? And then I began to realize that when you see somebody achieve something, it's a lot harder than it looks. I'm speaking to the businessman here. You see somebody else owning a multi-million-dollar empire, and you look at it and you think to yourself, what, I'm just going to leave my job and start selling whatever, and in 2 months or 3 months, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire, and I'm going to achieve what that person has achieved. Guess what? It's a lot harder than it looks. Guess what? It takes sacrifice. Guess what? It takes ownership. Guess what? It takes late nights. Guess what? It takes the time out of your family. Guess what? You got to have to sacrifice to achieve what you want to achieve. Somebody help me say, own the sacrifice. And so this morning, there's this thing that says, if you guys watch Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he says this thing, he says, with great power comes great responsibility, right? I want to switch that up a little bit, and if nobody's coined it yet, I want to coin it. I want to say, with great vision comes great sacrifice. If you want to achieve what God has set out for you to achieve, with great vision comes great sacrifice. How did she get her child all the way to university? Were you there when she was waking up 4 o'clock in the morning, taking 5 buses to make sure that she can pay the university fees? Were you there when she was taking on extra jobs as a single mother, trying to make sure that she can achieve what she needs to achieve for her daughter? How did he manage to get to live in that house, in that fancy community? Were you there when they were waking up early hours in the morning, trying to achieve? Were you there when it was taking a toll on their marriage? Were you there when it was taking a toll on their relationships with others? Were you there when it was taking a toll on their children? How do the people achieve what they achieve? It takes sacrifice. With great vision comes great sacrifice. Everybody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to shine. Everybody wants to have the best relationships. Everybody wants to live in the fanciest homes. Everybody wants to drive the nicest cars. But how many of you know that on that journey, it takes sacrifice? Own the sacrifice. On this journey, there's always a behind the scenes. There's always a behind the scenes. Are you with me this morning, family? You're awfully quiet this morning. There's always a behind the scenes. Many times I've walked with my parents for years, for 31 years. I'm 31 years old. And like I say every time I speak, I was that kid that grew up in church, under the church seats. I was always involved, playing in the cement mix there. We were building our building in the old, in Klipspruit, not in Klipspruit, in Extension 9 in Elders, where my father had to sell all his cars and had to ride to work with his bicycle just to make sure things. I was that kid, and my parents picked me up from school. We have to go straight to the site, and there's pictures of it there in that 10-year anniversary book. I'll be standing there with our shorties from school, and then our techies and our t-shirts, and and we're playing there in the cement, and we're doing all these things. There's sacrifice. And so many times I've also seen people come into this building, into this space, and see how nice everything looks, and see everything that God has enabled us to achieve. And then I think to myself, when I hear people say what they say, then I think back on the days of inside a classroom. Then I think back of the days of inside a tent, and when it starts storming, my dad is out there trying to make sure that the pole doesn't fall. Pastor Lester and Pastor Neil and the guys run, and they run to the tent to make sure. I remember one night there was something, the lightning struck the roof or something, and something started burning, and the whole carpet started burning. And next thing I just see everybody running, rushing to the church, trying to put out the fire. I don't know if you remember that day, right? And they're putting out the fire, doing crazy things. And when God brings you to a level where you've achieved, remember, there's always behind the scenes. There's people waking up early. There's people going to bed late. There's people sacrificing everything that they have. There's people sacrificing private money. There's people doing things to achieve what the average person is not willing to sacrifice. There's always behind the scenes. Putting your children through school takes sacrifice. The fact that you're living in a house takes sacrifice. The fact that you're driving that car takes sacrifice. You got to pay the bills. You got to put petrol. The fact that you go to work every day takes sacrifice. The fact that you have children, it takes sacrifice. The fact that you run that business takes sacrifice. There's always behind the scenes. Are you with me this morning, family? Everybody wants to be accepted. That's natural. That's how God made us. We want acceptance. Everybody wants to achieve. Everybody wants to progress. Everybody wants to achieve and get further in life. On that topic, real quick, how many of you know that sometimes we see people moving forward and achieving, and we envy their position? That brings us to our reference this morning in Genesis chapter 22, and allow me to explain the story to you real quick. So Genesis chapter 22, we find Abraham in a position where he was praying for God for a number of years. We know that Abraham lived over 100 years. And he was trusting God. His wife and himself, Sarah, they were trusting God for children. They could never get children. They were struggling to get children for the longest time. Then Abraham trusted God, and Abraham asked God, Lord, could you give me a child? And much like the story I explained a minute ago where I was holding my daughter in my hand, eventually the angel appears to Abraham and says, listen, I'm going to make Sarah pregnant. Abraham says, yeah, okay, God, I believe you. The Bible says Sarah was in the back there. She heard it. She started laughing because she didn't believe it. Eventually what begins to happen is that as time passes, then Sarah now becomes pregnant. Abraham then gets a son. He calls his son Isaac. Genesis 22. He calls his son Isaac. Bible says as time continues, Abraham now gets to a point where God now requires a sacrifice from Abraham. Somebody say, own the sacrifice. God requires a sacrifice now from Abraham. And guess what sacrifice God requires from Abraham? The very thing that he's been praying about all his life. The very thing that was his prized possession. The very thing that God has given him. God now requires Abraham to sacrifice the thing that he loves the most and says, you got to give it up. So Abraham is now thinking, yo, God, are you serious with this request? God's like, I'm as serious as death. I want you to give up your son, Isaac. But you see, this thing comes. You guys can start following with me now. So this thing comes where God now tells Abraham, the night before he says, listen, Abraham, what I want you to do is, I don't know why I imagined it this way. Excuse my basket over here. But I could just remember, you know, in the olden day movies how they got these like actual straw baskets. Are you with me? So God says to Abraham, okay, right, what I want you to do is pack some wood into your basket, right? And so Abraham's like, okay, I'm packing the wood. What else do you need me to do? He says, now just pack the wood into the basket. I'll give you instructions now. He says, okay, what must I pack the wood for? He says, no, for a sacrifice, a burnt sacrifice, offering, burnt offering unto me. You're going to sacrifice. He says, okay, I'll pack the wood. He says, what else must I take? He says, get a knife to sacrifice, right? So Abraham says, okay, I got the knife. I got the wood. Where must I go? He says, when you wake up in the morning, I'm going to tell you where to go. He says, okay. He goes to bed. In fact, God tells him the night before, he says, Abraham, tomorrow I'm going to show you a place on the mount. Genesis 22. And he says, I want you to sacrifice your son, Isaac. The night before, he must go the next morning and he must sacrifice his son, Isaac. You get a note from the bank that tomorrow something is going to happen. How do you sleep? You get a call that they're going to come repossess something. How do you sleep? You get a call that something went wrong. You must rush quickly and you're not sure. And you go and see your mother at the hospital and they give you bad news. How do you sleep? You get a call that the doctor said you did the test during the week. He tells you, okay, come tomorrow for the answers. And you're not sure you felt a lump or you felt something wrong inside you. And you know that there might be something wrong. And the doctor said, no, it looks like traces of cancer. And he says, come tomorrow morning. How do you sleep? Imagine having to sacrifice your only son, the son that you've been praying. Later he gets Ishmael. But the son that you've been, in fact, before he gets Ishmael, but the son that you've been praying about so long, the thing that you've been trusting God for yourself and Sarah so long. And the night before, God says, tomorrow morning, I want you to take your son for a sacrifice. How did Abraham sleep that night? But guess what? He trusted God. So the next morning, he gets up. He says, Isaac, come boy. He's like, okay, Daddy, let's go. And there was a thing where they went and sacrificed. So Isaac was familiar with the sacrificing process. He was familiar. He saw the wood. He saw the knife. He knew, okay, normally we do this, right? We know this because later on Isaac asks and he says, okay, so now where's the lamb? So we know that they're accustomed to the sacrifice process. So Moses says, okay, not Moses, Abraham. He says, okay, come. He takes his thing, and he takes his wood. He got his knife, and he's with his son, Isaac. Are you with me, fam? He's with his son, Isaac. He says, okay, let's go. You know the interesting thing about this text, I've preached this text a number of times before, but the first time when I was preparing it for this round, I saw something for the first time that I've never seen before. Do you know that the journey that they took from the time God told Abraham to take his son and to walk to the time that they got to the place where he's supposed to sacrifice his son was 3 days. Genesis 22, 3 days. So now imagine for 3 days. Imagine walking for 3 days knowing that I'm going to have to get to the front, they lay my son on the altar, and I'm going to have to kill my son. Maybe you don't understand this. There's my daughter. I don't want to do this illustration. It's probably a bit too graphic for some of you. Imagine I took my daughter, right there. She is right there. And I took my child, and I walked with her for 3 days, knowing that when I get there, God's requesting from me to kill my child. Imagine that journey. Imagine that walk. Imagine what's going through Abraham's mind. Imagine what he's thinking. That's cool for Abraham's sakes. Where does that put me? Imagine what's going on in your mind. You don't have the answers yet. God promised you something a while ago and you're not sure how you're going to achieve it yet. You're walking on this journey, not sure how you're going to pay next month's rent yet. You're walking on this journey, not sure how you're going to cover the cost to put your children through school yet. You're walking on this journey, striving to run your own business, but you're not sure how you're going to achieve this thing yet. You're walking on this journey, trusting God to come through for you in whatever it is that you believe in God to come through for you. And you're not sure when you get to the front there what's going to be the result. The question is, family, what are you willing to sacrifice? Let's begin to ask the question, what is Abraham sacrificing? The question is, what is Abraham sacrificing? Abraham, what is on the altar for you is his relationship with God. This morning, family, I want to submit to you that your relationship with God is a sacrifice. Your worship is a sacrifice. You coming to church on a Sunday morning is a sacrifice. How far and how deep and how wide you go in your walk with Christ is a sacrifice. The fundamental question we should be asking here is, what are you willing to give up for your relationship with God? What are you willing to sacrifice for your relationship with God? Are you willing to sacrifice your very own child for your relationship with God? How deep is your relationship with your Creator, with your Maker? How far does it go? How deep does it bury? How wide does it go? What are you willing to give up on a Sunday morning, on a Wednesday evening, on an everyday basis, coming home, putting aside the television, calling your family together, telling them, kids, this is God's hour that we're going to sacrifice to Him now for the next couple of minutes, putting off your television, switching off the cartoons, doing whatever it takes, and say, this is God's time. What are you willing to sacrifice for your relationship with God? Before we decide what we're willing to sacrifice, let's first understand what is a relationship. Number one is, a relationship is intentional. Somebody help me say, a relationship is intentional. Come on, everybody say, a relationship is intentional. A relationship needs to be beneficial for both parties. Somebody help me say beneficial. Come on, are you with me this morning, family? A relationship is intentional, number one. Number two, a relationship is beneficial. The first question I want to ask, is your relationship with God intentional? Do you make an intentional effort to spend time with Christ? Do you make an intentional effort to switch off what you're doing and open your Bible and read it and spend time with Christ? The second question I would like to ask you, family, is your relationship with Christ beneficial? I'm asking a question. Is your relationship with Christ beneficial? Does it make sense to have this relationship? Does it benefit you in any way to have this relationship? Does it make sense for you to leave what you're doing and spend time with Christ? A relationship needs to be beneficial for both parties. A relationship will be tested for its authenticity. This is the one we don't want to do. This is the Abraham one. This is the one where we don't want to test the authenticity of the relationship. This is the one where you miss one payment, things go south, and you say, God, but I give tithes and offering every Sunday, and now look what's happening to me. And the next thing you know, you stop tithing. This is the one where you say, God, but I've been praying so long for you to come through on this situation, and you're not doing it, so I'm not going to church anymore. This is the one where you keep God ransom, depending on how He answers your prayers, is depending on how you're going to worship Him on a Sunday morning. This is the one where we keep God ransom, depending on how fast He responds to your authority, and how fast He responds to you asking Him, and how fast He responds to you clicking your fingers as if He's a magic genie. This is the one we keep God ransom with. We don't want it to be tested. We want to walk, well, Jesus is in my boat, I can smile at the storm. Everything is fine, everything is roses, everything is sunshine. We don't want the relationship to be tested. But every relationship needs to be tested for its authenticity. And imagine Abraham walking with his son for 3 days, following and obeying the request that God himself said to him. Look, man, if you're going to walk with me, if you're going to talk with me, I'm going to make a plan for you. Abraham didn't know what to expect when he got in the front, but he knew I had to be obedient. He knew that I had to walk this journey. He knew that I had to walk this road. Because you see, when you begin to walk this journey, you begin to understand who God is. When you begin to walk this journey, you begin to trust God deeper. When you begin to walk this journey, you begin to understand that He'll never leave you and He'll never forsake you. When you begin to walk this journey, because this is a difficult journey, this is a tough journey. This journey can go south anytime. This journey, you're not sure what to expect when you get to the front. But when you begin to embark on this journey, you got to be sure that you know God will come through somehow. A relationship needs to be tested for its authenticity. True relationship is something you will be willing to die for. Abraham is willing to kill his own son for this relationship. Relationship will determine your use of time. Relationship will determine your use of time. How am I using my time on a daily basis? The way you use your time tells me what you deem important. Think about that for a second. What you do with your time, sit on YouTube, watch YouTube videos the whole day. Sit on Facebook, scroll through everyone's profiles, and before you know it, you've been on there for 2 hours. Sit on Instagram and scroll. Before you know it, you've been there so long. Is that what you deem important? Your relationship will determine your use of time. Your relationship determines how you invest your money. Woo. If somebody is important to you, you invest money on them. If someone means something to you, you spend something on them. If it's my daughter's birthday, I'll go buy her something because it's her birthday. And I deem her important. And I think she means something to me. So I'll spend money on her. Relationship will determine how you invest your money. Is your relationship with God important? It will be determined by how you sow into His kingdom. Are you with me, family? Is that a tough one? Is that one a bit too much? Relationship dictates your direction in life. So when you are close to God, guess what your direction will look like? Guess what you're able to achieve? Family, if we can get to the point where we understand our relationship with God is the only thing that matters. That's why the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these other things shall be added unto you. The reason it says that is because when your relationship with God is where it's supposed to be, you're open-minded, you're level-headed, you make clear decisions, you understand things, you have discernment. Before you sign on that paper, you see that God is already impressing in your spirit. Don't sign here, you're going to get yourself into trouble. You have discernment. That determines your success. Your relationship with God will determine the direction in life. Relationship dictates your values. You speak how you want. You treat people how you want. It says a lot about your relationship with God. It determines your values. Relationship attracts resources. When you have a good relationship with God, you will wonder why everyone's inviting you. Why everyone is saying, yo, that brother has so-and-so company, go to him. You will wonder why, hey, that sister, she bakes nice things and she's running her own thing. Let's buy our stuff from there. Relationship will attract resources. Things will start making sense for you. This is true not only in your relationship with Christ, it's true even in your mortal relationships with one another. You'll hear the most valuable thing in business is not the money and all that, it's the relationship. Relationship will get you things money can't get you. Relationship will open doors. Even if you're a millionaire, it wouldn't have opened not unless you knew the person inside. Relationship attracts resources. What are you willing to sacrifice for your relationship with God? On the third day, family, on this journey, you learn how to deal with your emotions. When you walk in this journey with Christ, and it seems unfair, and it seems as if God's not answering your prayers, and it seems as if God's not coming through, on this journey, what God is trying to teach you is how to deal with your emotions. On this journey, you learn how to deal with your thoughts. Are you with me, family? You learn how to deal with your thoughts. On this journey, you understand decision making. I had a conversation with my dad not so long ago, and he says, now for the first time in a long time, in my journey that I am with God now, I understand why He's letting me go through what I'm going through. When God allows you to face certain things, it seems unfair. It seems like, why is all hell breaking loose against me? It seems like, why is everything coming down on me all at once? But if you can stand firm, if you can stay focused, if you can continue pressing to the top, I promise you, you will learn so much in this journey. You see, on this journey, you learn how to grow tenacity. On this journey, you learn how to grow grit. On this journey, you learn how to grow strength. On this journey, you learn how to grow wisdom. On this journey, you learn how to trust God better. On this journey, you learn how to grow determination. On this journey, you learn how to grow understanding. On this journey, you learn how to grow compassion. On this journey, you learn so much on this journey. God is not taking you what He's taking you through because it's unfair. I love the text in Exodus where God begins to speak to Moses and tells him to get his people through the promised land. As I preached it on Wednesday night here, and what Moses tells the people when they begin to waver, what Moses tells the people when they begin to get nervous, what Moses tells the people when they begin to think, this is not working out for us. Moses then tells the people, that God gives Moses instruction. He says, tell the people, stand firm and keep it moving. Stand firm and keep it moving. Stand firm and keep it moving. You see, because as they're walking through the water, He says, stand firm, but keep it moving. When He tells them stand firm, it doesn't mean stand still and wait for the next instruction. He says, stand firm in your knowledge of who I am, but keep it moving. I want to say the same thing happens to Abraham when he's walking up this mountain with this big thing on his back, with his hood and his knife in his back, and he begins to walk up this journey, and he's thinking, God, you're being so unfair. How could you give me a child and then expect me to kill the child? But as he's walking through this journey, he begins to deal with his emotions. As he's walking through this journey, he begins to deal with his thoughts. As he's walking through this journey, he begins to deal with his decision making. As he's walking, he grows tenacity, he grows grit, he grows strength, he grows wisdom. I wonder if I've got some people, I'm preaching my heart out, and I want you to join me. He grows trust, he grows determination, he grows understanding, he grows compassion. And when he gets to the top of his journey, all you need to do is keep looking up and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. Say with me, keep looking up and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. God, but it's my son. Keep looking up and keep it moving. God, but it's unfair. Keep looking up and keep it moving. But I can't kill my own child. Keep looking up and keep it moving. But it's tough. Keep looking up and keep it moving. But how do I kill him? Keep looking up and keep it moving. But we waited so long for this. Keep looking up and keep it moving. And guess what happens when Abraham gets to the top of that mountain? When he gets to to the top. Oh, I want you to understand something, that God has already prepared the sacrifice on your behalf. God has already set it up on your behalf. He wants to take you through the journey. He wants you to endure the process. He wants you to take on the journey so that you can learn something. This journey is not so God can make you stupid. It's not so God can take you in your face. It's not so God can show you how insignificant you are. In fact, maybe it is, so that He can show you how great He is, how powerful He is, how strong He is. Because when Abraham gets to the top of the mountain, the Bible says he has his child. His child is laying on the thing. What were you willing to give up for your relationship? Own a sacrifice. Own it. It's going to cost you something. It's not free. It's not free. Salvation is not free. Get that thought out of your head. It's not free. Just because you didn't pay for something doesn't mean it's free. It's not free. When you come stand here and accept God in your heart, it's a free gift from Him. That doesn't mean it fell from the sky. Someone paid for it. He paid for it. With His life, He paid for it. He paid for it with His life. Here comes the perfect Lamb of God, which takes away the sins of the world. Shadows and types, you learn it if you come to the Wednesday night, Tuesday night classes. As he's about to take his daughter, his son, and he keeps the knife right above. And he's serious as death. He's serious. He's not playing. He's not making an illustration. He doesn't know. We know now because we read it afterwards. He didn't know at the time. He thought for real, it's done. It's finished now. It's came down. We know now after the fact. He stood there with a knife on top of his son's head. And his son even asking now, Daddy, where's the sacrifice? I see the hood. I see the knife. I see everything, but now what's happening? You know what he says to his son? He says, God will provide. You know what you say to your situation when the devil says, now you the sacrifice. You tell him to hell with you, devil. God will provide. They come in to switch off the lights. God will provide. I don't have money for bread. God will provide. How do I pay the school fees at the end of this month? God will provide. How do I sort out what I need to sort out? God will provide. Zakes are talking about retrenchment at work. God will provide. Zakes, I'm becoming whatever it is that I'm becoming. God will provide. Zakes, my marriage looks like it's not going to work. God will provide. Zakes, they say that it might be a premature. God will provide. They say that they might have to keep the child in the incubator. God will provide. How do I heal from a loss of my child? God will provide. Something will happen. God will show up. And right before Satan thinks that he won, God says, stop right there. While you're walking up this side of the mountain, God is sending the answer up the other side of the mountain. So by the time you get to the top, you reach what He reaches. And before you strike down the knife, He says, stop right there. And Abraham looks up. And in the bush, a ram is caught by his horns, struggling to get out of the bush. The enemy that thought he was going to defeat you is struggling to get out of the bush. You must just stay focused and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. Keep looking up and keep it moving. Because when you get to the top, He says, don't leave your child. Imagine the faith to know on 3 days, in fact, the night before already, bruh, when I get to the top, God better do something. He better do something, because how are we going to make it now? He says, just keep walking, bro. Don't worry about it. As he looks up, he says, there's the sacrifice. Listen to what God says. He says, because of your obedience, I will make your descendants numerous. So many that you cannot count them. Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. That comes from that day. Before you strike, what are you willing to sacrifice with your relationship with God? Because a sacrifice has a reward. Your sacrifice has a reward. If you're obedient and you keep looking up and you keep it moving, your descendants will be numerous among the earth. So much that you cannot. Your business is going to work. Your marriage is going to work. Your emotional scars will heal. Your children will get saved. Things will come together. You will travel. Your children will be successful. Things will come together. God will restore your mental health. God will restore your emotional capacity. God will restore you. It will work. Keep looking up and keep it moving.